The following are stories told by Bryant Wright and Florence Wright.
This is a recording. Now, anything you hear me say is false.
Oh, don't believe that. Why don't you tell us the story about where you taught your dad to drive?
Oh, yes, that is
Oh,
great.
I'd like to hear that on the tape.
I would too. The kids would be tickled about that.
You know, they haven't heard
He
you
bought
tell
that
that.
car and he never did drive it. Just a little truck, you know. This is a Ford, Model T Ford. And they made a truck
No.
out of it.
Just
And
one
all it had
seat.
was a windshield up. And for the seat was a 6-inch board around to hold a cushion on.
It's like
No
a-
backrest or nothing. And then they had a flat board on the back for a truck. That's how he throwed me out. Because I didn't have no stuff to hold on. He just said he'd just like to drive. And so started out. Well, we was coming from Salt Lake about there was the old hill there they used to call White Hill. We got to the top. Well, I'd like to learn to drive that. I said, okay, so I get out and move around, slide over. The way they drive, used to have them things then was, in order to throw it out of gear, you had to have your emergency brakes. You had to throw your clutch out of gear. And your gas speed was up here on your handle. And you had a spark on this side. And then you had your one brake right first in here. And then the middle clutch had 3 clutches in there. One was brake, one was high and low, and the other one was reverse. And you push it down for low, and then when you get started, you get going, you take your foot off and you fly back into high. So he got up there, and I said, well, now pull your gas down quite a little ways until you get started. So he did that. And of course, he had it down in low, you know, on the pedal. He started off the side of the road, and I said, look like you're running off the road. So he just turned it like that quick. And I had nothing on, and I just flipped right out. And he looked back at me and took his foot off, and then it went back into high. He didn't know how to stop it. Went down the road a little ways and off down the bar, flipped around through a field there.
That was the first
He
time
did.
he was
We were talking about cutting figure eights in the field. He was doing it. He didn't know, and I couldn't no more catch him, and I couldn't holler to him. He couldn't hear it. Finally hit a ditch. Just jumped out and he run toward me. He says, "What'd you jump out for?" All right. Funny things happen.
Was that why you was married?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I don't think
That was
he
a
ever,
1916 Model Ford.
he ever tried it
But
again.
that was in, let's see, that was about 1918,
He
because it
never-
was right after that we bought a 1919 Ford ton truck. And at that time, we paid I think it was 900 and something, a little under $1,000 for that truck. You could buy a Ford car for around that time around. Well, I imagine between $500 and $600.
You got to ride in it then some, huh, Mother?
Oh, yes. That's what I said when we think sometimes, well, we ought to take and get us a pickup, you know. And, we rode around in these trucks for so many years. I can no more trucks from you.
Well, there's quite a difference between what they are nowadays.
I said it was a little hard rubber tire on the back, bump, every seconds in the road.
How many was there of us that went up to Iona, Idaho?
I think there was 17 of us in one of them Ford trucks.
In a big Ford
yeah.
truck.
We left Salt Lake about in the afternoon, or we left Bounce rather in the afternoon. You know, the other side of Willard down there, that little pond in there they used to fish in, you know. Well, we got that far that night and camped there alongside the road. Then the next day, we come up to around there by McCammon, and we pulled off in the pasture there and camped. we had a big tent pitched. And then we had a little trouble, and when we got into Pocatello here, we had to stop for a little while and do a little work on the tractor. And we went the rest of the day on up to Iona, inside Iona.
Oh, that was terrible.
But the next time going home, we only made one stop. But you know, if you went 30 miles an hour at that time, with that kind of, I think you were speeding. No, that's about all it could do.
And now they'd arrest you if you went that.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. And then I drove one of them. When I first learned to drive, I went to work for the Troy Laundry. They're not in there now. It was quite a big outfit. They had about, I think it was either 29 or 30, well, maybe it was 32 different routes. I was always at that time. And I got a job over there. Well, how I got that, I'd been working out the Garfield smelter. And that was, I worked there about 6 months, and I went down to about 100, I was about 145 pounds, I went down to 120 pounds. And they dumped that old ore out of those roasters there. At the top, it'd be 2 floors, like. And this floor here would have 3 decks on where they had big arms that go around and work that ore in this way and then out on the next floor this way. And when it come in the top, it was muddy. When it come out at the bottom, it was just white heat. And we used to have to have a big bar in there, and it'd stick on the ceiling, you know, rub on the bars. We'd have to keep that knocked off. We couldn't stop the machine. If you stopped the machine, it'd set up tight, freeze right up tight with the heat. And we'd have to knock them off when the bar arm would come around. We'd have to throw the bar up over like that, and we had a little hole like that to work. Oh, it was hot. Well, anyway, I went and put an application in with Troy Laundry. I quit there and went on a fishing trip with one of my brothers and three other boys that was staff. They were going fishing. I went with them. I quit my job out there and went on this trip. And before I left, I put an application in with Troy Laundry for a job. But these Jeep boys, they could drive that car. They got a car. They had a car. You know, and one of the what was his name? I can't remember now. But anyway, when I come back from that trip, why, they'd sent word down for me to come to work. So I goes up there. They had, mostly it was horses. They had about, maybe out of that many, they had about 5 or 6 or maybe a little more trucks. He says, can you drive a car? And well, you go out there and get number 25. I went out and got it. And it took me an hour to get it out of there, out of back in. But I got by on it all right. I used to have a lot of experience with that thing. They used to have what they call a wishbone that comes out and held the front axle up. A nice thing is fastened up here in the middle. But they had it made so that the axle went along this way and this fit on top of the axle. Of course, when you hit some hard, very many chuck holes, why, it kind of keep a bend in that. You get bent so that when you turn the steering wheel, you couldn't turn it back unless you put all your weight on it, and you just go around in circles.
That's like they show the Keystone Cops.
Yeah, and I was on 21st South there, and it was, let's see, the prison was on 17th, no, 13th. And I was going by there, and they come around the lock, and I run into the fence around the prison. You want to leave me out back way there in a hurry. One day I was going, used to take and try to ride the rails over on 9th East and 9th South. That's where my route started, 9th East and 9th South. Took everything to 21st South and clear on up to the mountains. Of course, you get up there and up above 17th East, there was only about 5 or 6 houses.
I say, it probably wasn't what there is now.
And,
No.
anyway, the streetcar tracks on 9th East and 9th South, they run both ways. They cross there. And they used to go over and ride the rails over, you don't even have bumps. And then when I come out one day, the wheel locked on me, and a woman just stepped off the curb and started to walk out, and I went over there. I just went right around her like that. She thought I was crazy, I guess, which I guess I was.
Learned how to drive it a hard way. Just lucky you didn't know you're gonna wreck a house or.
One day, the axle broke on it. Broke right off the wheel. Well, I was turning the corner, and the thing come up in the air like that, and I thought probably it hit a chuck hole. And so I just pulled the gas down a little lower, you know, I was in a hurry. And then when it was on the fender, see, the fender raised it up high, and then when it got over the fender, it dropped. It like dropped to the bottom.
Well, you do have to come and tow you in.
Oh, they towed me in lots of times out there. There wasn't no pavement up there around the 17th East. The streetcar tracks ran out on 17th East. Up above 17th East, it was very, like I say, only about half a dozen at the most, I guess, houses up in that territory. But I used to have to take a trip up there once a week. Along 17th East out as far as about 17th South, there was, maybe 20 houses. But the streetcar went by there, and it was all dirt road. And they just graded it up. The first year, winter I was there, they just graded it up. It was all soft. And one day I went across the streetcar track, and it just lost down like that. The body stepped right on the river. I had to go pull me in, and about 6 or 8 guys come out and lifted it up.
Oh, we had more.
Streetcar didn't come during that time.
You don't run out there about twice a day, I think.
I'll bet you were glad.
They just have to wait it.
Did you ever try to drive one of them, Mother?
No, I stayed away from the wheel of the car.
She used to drive out of Fort Hall,
I
but
was
Yeah.
gonna say, I remember you telling about driving out
We
there.
call it driving when you lied.
she'd drive down the bar pit, nothing else.
Well, I wanted to see where the brakes were.
You're looking down, you went out of the bar pit, and I was following her with the tractor. Oh boy, I hope she gets out of there. She tried to find a little ways up there and finally she went out.
Luck would have it, I didn't get tangled up in barbed wire.
She knows how to drive. She just wouldn't.
No, I had no desire, never
Well, you
had.
never have, but then you can drive.
And now Lorraine, my sister, she was different from me. And she was determined she was going to learn how to drive. And so one day she brought Lily and I in. We lived out in Bountiful. Brought Lil and I into town. Oh, she knew how to drive, because she didn't have to know how to drive then. You just get in the car and go. And she got nervous. And she went on the turn. And instead of turning going up the street, she turned and started back down on the wrong side of the road. And she got all confused, and she rode her car up to the lawn, and it was quite a high lawn there, and she just did get it stopped before we hit her front porch. Oh, no, I didn't need that much of
Well, you
it.
could, then, years ago, you know, you never had the traffic back then, And in the summertime, while I used to have the garden out there, and I'd have to pick the garden, and then maybe go pick up stuff, take to market. And we used to haul a lot of stuff on commission. By the time you get in there and get all the stuff packed and on, it'd be maybe past midnight. I'd have to leave about 4 o'clock in the morning for the market. It'd be all right going down, but in the afternoon when I'd go home, I'd just be so sleepy. Many a time I would go. I know one time I remember driving about a mile, but the road was straight and never remember.
I know a lot of times we'd get
Many
up,
times. The old, we used to have that old cement road out there, and usually, they didn't keep it graded up like you do now. You drop off in that and it'd wake you up.
That's that one by Bountiful.
Yeah. Oh, no, no. I got out there to Bountiful where they call, I think they still call it 5 Points there. And, just a little past 5 Points there, and there's a curve down around that one. Here coming a little car around
Many
the
a
curve
time.
down there. There was a guy going along the wagon. They hit the wagon, busted the wheel off. It still kept coming. I got off the side of the road, and they passed me up. Went down there to 5 Points, and then they went up east. Well, they cut off on that angle. Went up there where they call the Valverde. Yeah, up in there, and that was all orchard, mostly down in through there. And there was a few homes up through there. And went on up into there. When I got into Bountiful, somebody dropped the bank, and that was in that car. I turned around and went back up there, and they, these guys, there was 2 guys in the car, and one of them took off and went up over the hill mountain, because they got the dead end, see? And they seen a car coming in, where there was some real estate in, and they thought it was a police ambulance. So this one guy just took out, took his rifle and shot through the car, and they killed one guy there. And then he ran off down in the holler down in there in a brush patch. And they got there was a lot of Salt Lake police out there. They were down kind of surrounded, and they didn't know what Sam Hill was doing. They couldn't get him to come out. So finally one guy said, "I'll go." He went down there, and the guy never shot after that, after he realized.
They robbed the bank down in Bountiful.
The bank, he was
Were you in Bountiful at the time? Or?
Yeah.
and he was a fellow that I guess didn't have any money to speak of, but he had an invention. I don't remember what that invention was at the time, but it was quite an important thing. And he needed some money to finish it. So he decided to rob this bank. I think he did finish his invention while he was in prison. And the other guy went up over the mountain. It was in the fall of the year, and we got in some cold weather, and he finally came down. I think it was City Creek down there. I'm not sure what canyon he come down. But they were watching for him. No,
Uh-huh.
no. He finally come down the canyon down through after he'd been up over there a bit part of the night. I guess he decided it wasn't worthwhile. They didn't do too much with him, they did. They said this guy was prison. But he was just a young fellow. And like I say, they come around that corner, but I got off the road when I seen him hit that wagon. He come around that curve, but he went too fast.
Yeah, we used to travel around that old hill now, they're digging it there and all.
Or White Hill, when White Hill is there.
We used to have a great big old house, great big old tall house, right on top
Well,
of
that
the
was,
hill.
that was near in where that packing house was.
I'd see that thing and we'd start out for home and I'd get the blues. Oh, I felt like we lived in Bountiful. Being from Salt Lake to the Otter, miles and miles away. Oh, it was a long mule ride. And
There used to be a cut.
You just like,
There used to be a cut where the road went through. Well, it was kind of a hill, it wasn't very high on one side of the line. Cut down in there. And that was just before we got where this hill was in a house.
Did you ever see that old house?
No,
I remember seeing it when we went down to Salt Lake when I was a kid.
You
Yeah,
could,
an
you
old
might have
rock
done.
house.
oh yeah, it was there for years.
Years?
They
Mhm.
dug them out.
You probably could have seen it.
No
Way up
way.
on the top hill.
Yeah.
And anyway, we was
No,
coming,
it's gone
started through
now.
that cut, we'd had an awful rainstorm. And boy, when we got out there was about that much water coming through that cut. And they said it was washed out down through there. And
Many a
said
time.
we had to go way down around and go very near down to the lake and around. It was after dark when you go, I don't know how we ever found our way home. Way around.
Wonder a lot of times how we ever got one. Another time we come through there and one of those great big tanks was afire.
No, they wouldn't let us.
Oh, no, nobody goes through.
Okay.
About when was that? About what year?
Oh, I can't remember what year it was. That's so long.
Do you remember what year the bank was robbed?
Around
We
the
didn't
20.
have very many kids because I used to wake him up and go with Bryant. What he'd do, he'd come home from the market, and he'd go at the market early in the morning. He'd come home, then he'd go clear up to Syracuse and Kaysville and those places and load a load of cantaloupes or tomatoes.
Tomatoes mostly what was getting up there. and
Have that
potatoes.
truck just full. Then he'd come back home again, and then early in the morning again, and he'd be so sleepy. And then I used to ride, take the kids that early sometimes in the morning, go with him, so to try and watch him. So he
She sat
didn't
around on the
sleep.
market for hours.
Oh, and I'd sit around there on the market till I figured Mother was up, or his mother was up, and then go down for a little while. And
Our couches
And
then, the
we
days
came
ago,
home.
we had a fancy couches. One of these here with the springs and the sides that flop down. And you can straighten them out and make a bed. Quite often on the weekend during the summer, slide that in with a mattress on, the extra mattress on top of it, put a kitchen table and a kitchen chair in them,
go to
take
the
off and make a
canyon.
bonfire to cook on. Stay out. Had it, the truck we had stakes side, stand about that high. And we
Oh,
put
we
canvas
wouldn't.
over that.
We wouldn't go alone.
About
We
3 or 4 feet high. Huh?
And we had, usually have somebody go. Some of
we
them
had
a couple of
friends that'd go, and
We had,
Bill and
three,
Killer used
we
to
had
go.
3 other couples there we used to go with once in a while. They neither one of them had any children. He's the only one that had children. And Bill and Keller, they used to go an awful lot.
Bill and Killer had children all the same age as ours. And used to
We
love
got
What
up,
canyon was that?
Weber Canyon a lot. We just got Weber Canyon. We went up and stayed up Immigration Canyon for very near a week one time in summer, and we had 2 tents there. And we had this couch, and we had that down in there, and the kids, I think, slept in the truck or something. No, we left the truck home because they had to use it. No, we had the truck there, because I remember now, we hauled that stuff up there. Well, anyway, it rained every night. And it was a good thing we had this couch for the very simple reason. If it hadn't done, I stepped out of bed one night when it was raining like that, water ankle deep running underneath there. Of course, we was right along beside
And we'd
the creek.
go try it again. We never gave up on it.
Clarence Smith and them were out with us. That was the time it rained so. They used to take Bud and you put him out in the creek and watch him climb back out.
It was just a little tiny
Just a
night.
little tiny.
Mhm. They didn't have any kids of their own. And so,
He just died, I understand. He
yeah.
used to be on the police force, there, so he was juvenile officer, part of it. He was a big fellow, big husky fellow, and he used to practice weightlifting. Of course, there's a lot of them people in there. I haven't seen him, we hadn't seen him, I guess, for over 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna have to go and the kids are there
Sure,
alone.
love you.
There's one other story I want to hear though before we leave, since we've been talking about cars. Tell us about your motorcycle ride.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. You don't want that on record.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
really have some exciting riding in it.
My brother had a motorcycle. He had that crazy motorcycle, and I worked at Arbacks at that time. just as a rapper. I was just a kid, about 17 years old. And he come to pick me up, and after work, and we went. I was going along, you know, where that Maxim, I think that's what they called it,
Hotel you're talking about.
hotel.
Down by the condo.
I think that's when you kids said you slept.
Down by the condo.
What was it?
Moxon.
Moxon. Well, anyway, we had to pass that. You had the railroad tracks right down the,
Streetcar, no railroad.
yeah, street tracks, and you had to kind of turn out. And there was a crazy old dog, and I sat sideways. I didn't like to sit any other way on that thing. And this dog was after my heels. For some reason, I couldn't get rid of this silly thing. And he just wanted my heels, and I just lifted my one foot up, and I lost my balance. And boy, I went over and slid on the side, clear down to the gutter. I had a silk blouse on, and that blouse was just a thread. When I got there, and I thought sure I was dead. I laid there for a little while, and Irvin could feel the weight had gone. So he stopped at the corner and turned around and came back. And people were rushing out of the buildings. Boy, they come over to pick me up dead. Boy, I looked up and I seen that, and I got up and got on the motorcycle. I said, let's go. And I didn't even, quite a few years after, I met some fellow, and on the other side of the street was a drugstore. And this guy, and I met him, and he, of course, he knew Irvin and knew us. And he says, boy, he says, when I seen you go, he says, and I ran over there, he says, Werner, to you, when you looked up and you got on the motorcycle and took off. He says, we never did hear on you. How you were. Well, I was skinned up pretty bad, you know, my arm and leg.
What did they say at work? Any
Big
jokes
bullets.
about it? You never told them.
My doctor's my burns up and never said anything, but oh, God, I'm sure she did that.
Do you remember about how old you were or anything?
I had a cousin that had one of them.
Remember about how old you were?
Yeah, I was about 17 then.
And,
I wasn't very old.
I had a cousin that had one of the motorcycles, and we got an idea where you hitched it up to the buggy like a horse. We did, we hitched it up. One of them sat on the back and held the shafts up, and we had a rope from that back in there, and I rode in the buggy. We took quite a ride.
If they'd ever got to me, they'd have hauled me to the hospital. And I
So when you didn't have some broken bones.
never had a broken bone.
when's your birthdays?
Mine is December the 3rd.
What year?
This coming year, our birthday's this year, December the 3rd.
I haven't turned that on. Well, what year were you born?
97, maybe.
Yeah, 97. And
Born 97.
Yours
Born
is November
96.
7th.
he's 96.
96, huh? Yeah. I thought I would.
I'd say, have you?
No.
Oh, no.
So you can just flip the...
It's that reunion up at a park up near Sugar House. Out, I think south of Sugar House. There was 6 of the sisters there then. 2, 4, 6, yeah, 6 out of the 9.
What's their names? See if you can name them right in a row.
Well, this is Edna, that's my youngest sister there. And then you know her, that's Aunt Lillian.
Uh-huh.
And
Who's that good-looking guy there?
little bald-headed guy, they've got a system now that's the way they shear sheep. They give them a pill, and then they can just brush the wool off.
Oh.
That's what they're saying on the program here one morning.
Huh.
Was Andy's folks down there when they had that shake in Rose Park?
Rose Park.
Kind of an earthquake. Half the people don't know that the news, it said they had it, so.
You know, I ought to look at these pictures often, or I can't tell them. Well, anyway, that was Aunt Edna,
I thought maybe they were down there.
and that was Aunt Lillian. And this is Aunt Neoma. She's deaf, so is this one.
Edna's deaf.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Aunt Maud, you know her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Aunt Violet, that lives in California.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Aunt Neoma. She died not so long. She was deaf too.
How long ago did she die?
Oh, a few years ago. 5 years, 6, 5, 6 years.
Oh, let's see, that's 1, 2,
There's 6 of them.
6 of them. And there's 3 more, isn't there?
Yeah. That was Aunt Ruby and Aunt Jessie and Aunt Pearl.
They're all dead, aren't they?
Wait a minute. Aunt Jane, not Aunt Pearl, because this is Aunt Pearl here.
Oh.
That looks like Aunt Renee.
And there was Aunt Jane. She wasn't very old. She was a little older than me. She died quite young. That was the one that married Dell.
Del Clough?
Jane was. And she, Aunt Jane and Aunt Lillian both married brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lillian married Ralph. Dale, he was Marshall, or no Marshall.
Oh, he used to be sheriff up there. He used to be sheriff there at Fort Hall too at one time.
Mm-hmm.
He's still working, well, he was working, I think he quit them entirely now. He was working in the police force and like that.
What's their other maiden names?
Well, hers was Glenn. Edna Glenn and Lillian Clough, Neil Monson, Maud Heffel, Violet Knightley, and Pearl Jim.
And what was the others?
Well, the other was Ruby Barnett. Well, that was my oldest sister.
Yeah. That's where you got the Barnetts, where you...
And Jesse Barlow, you know Elmer,
Uh-huh.
that was his mother.
Oh.
And Jane was the one that was married to Dell. And here's my 2 oldest brothers. This was my oldest brother, and that was the next 2 oldest brother. He was deaf too. And then there was one brother younger than me that was deaf, and he died when he was only about 22, 3 years old. This is his picture right here, right over here.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing everything up to older brother. And these 2 were deaf, and this one was deaf. And
What was
Yes,
your younger
ma'am.
brother's name?
it was Joshua. Josh.
Josh.
This one, that's my youngest sister. She was deaf. This girl was deaf. And this girl and the 2 boys. Yeah. Yeah, that's, Alan, that was one of them. This is Alec. He used to teach school in Colorado Springs, the deaf school. He was quite a basketball player for his day at that time.
Let's see now, your dad's name was George. What was his middle name?
Just George Wright.
Just George.
Here's some of your letters.
What was your mother's name?
Rachel.
Did she have a middle name?
Rachel Mary.
Mary.
And here's your mother's family. Here it is. These are three sisters. These two here are supposed to be twins. They don't look much alike. And this is her brother. This is her oldest brother, and then this is the one she was talking about had the motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
Now, he was shot and killed by a friend of his oldest boy, his boy. He only had one boy.
That was the one that was an accident where he came out of the house.
He just come out of the house and they were shooting him. Stepped right in her arm.
How come they were shooting towards the house?
Well, they were shooting alongside the house.
Mm.
Here he is here, that's another picture of him.
How old was he when he was shot?
I can't remember, he wasn't so long. He has his boy, his oldest boy now, lives down there just a block or two from Bud. Roland, and there was two girls, but one of them I don't live back east somewhere, the other one lives there in Salt Lake. And there's some of the gang there. Let's see who was missing from there. Did you know who it was?
Yeah, I've seen that picture before, Mother.
That's the same person as this. Who's this? You know who this is? Yeah.
Mhm. That's the way they used to. How old was she there? About?
I bet she's about 16, 17 years old. Maybe a little older. She had one better picture than that. I thought it was better. She didn't. I don't know what she did. I think she burned it up.
Mhm.
Is this you?
Mm-hmm. Who's this?
Dad. Okay.
Mhm.
We can tell him. I think it's one of our uncles. No.
This guy's the same guy as this one.
Yeah.
Who's this here? That's the same guy as this one right here. See, we used to wear short pants, didn't we? They were quite old.
Let's see.
That's the old house in Union, isn't it?
Yeah. That's just here too, this house here. I think this here, well, this was taken down on South Main, I think. That was taken down on South Hayes.
South Main. When did you move from there?
Well, we moved there to down to Union.
Uh-huh, but
Yeah.
I was only, what, a couple of years old?
Well, we were probably 3 years old, something like that. We moved down there. We moved down there in, I think it was 42, so you'd only been about 2 years old
Mhm.
when we moved down there.
That's you guys, I think.
Yeah. Now here's,
Best picture what of the house?
the old house here in Bountiful, old rock house. And they used to have when I was a kid, we used to have a long bench, about so high. Oh, it was about 8 feet long. We used to sit along there usually in front of that window. We used to nearly always have an old pet lamb around there. They used to feed on the bottle, and they get pretty good size. They get kind of mean. They chase you. And we used to run in there and jump up on this bench. One time he knocked me down. One of them knocked me down. Every time I go to raise my head to get up, he'd start after me. The kids, when I was an older person, I never bothered them. Kids used to.
Well, hey, while you're talking about that old house, I don't think the boys have heard about when you had, what was it, scarlet fever?
Not there.
Oh.
We lived down on South Main at that time.
Well, which was it they came along and changed the, oh, you saw the band
Well,
burger
this
blowing
here,
off? And,
we lived in that house there. That was when they used to, they took and drove spikes in the rock walls and put cables over the top of the roof there to hold it down so it would blow away. And, I was sick with typhoid fever at that time.
oh, it was typhoid fever, yeah.
And, I was in bed with typhoid fever, and all the neighbors come in over there. And they figured, well, if it did blow the roof on, it wouldn't blow the house away.
Did it cause any damage to many of the
There's
homes?
a few of the houses around there, some damage, some barns blown out, and some windows blown out. But it was quite a strong wind there. And, the first day I set up, I watched them trying to put the hamburger on the back of the truck.
Not a hamburger.
Hamburger.
You ever hear what the band burger was? Can you tell him what the band burger was, Dad? Probably better than I could.
This
It was
shows
a train, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a train run between Salt Lake and Ogden through Bountiful. You see this picture here? See, this is Bernice, how much bigger she is than her brother.
Oh, yeah.
This is a picture of the first, that old Oldsmobile I had, you know,
Oh,
down in front of Rich and Answer's house down in, what's the name of that lane?
yeah. 118 Westwood Avenue. Is that the one somebody, you got a picture of somebody putting rocks in the gas tank?
Yeah,
Who was it you caught putting rocks in the gas tank?
Keith, I think it was, Denny. Anyway, this is where Ken used to live, you know, the first place out there. We moved out there in the desert.
Mm.
Some of the pictures there.
This old brood.
And there's another picture of them out there at that time.
What was that? Oh, this was that house we lived in down there by the river. Hayes, isn't it?
Yeah.
When did we live there? I
It was about 40,
middle of the first grade.
46, about 46, I think it was.
How long did we live there?
Oh, a year or so.
How long did we live there in Union?
Well, we were down in Union about 3 years, I guess.
And then we moved to where?
And we moved back up to here. We went out and stayed in that little cabin out of that house.
Yeah.
And then we was just there a little while during the summer. Then we moved in Fort Hall. You remember Cutler's there? We moved in that house, catty-corner
Yeah,
across
there
from
across
Cutler.
the street.
A little old two-room house.
An old Indian house there.
Until we could get a house in town. And then finally we got this place down. We lived there a few months and then finally got this place down on South Hayes. And we lived there, imagine, I don't think we lived there 2 years. That was a place where the guy bought it and we had that river at the back. And in the middle of winter when he come down, we had a snowstorm and the river was froze over. The guy bought the place and didn't even know there was a river back there. He looked out of the back when he came down and looked at it and he says, "You must have a gully back there." I didn't say anything about that. And I understand he bought it.